backing up to earlier this week, news broke online that somebody had released domesticated birds into one of the nature preserves that's on the northwest side. It's called the West Ridge Nature Preserve. It's at the corner of Western and Peterson. It's actually kind of borders Rose Hill Cemetery, which is this massive slab of green space right in the middle of the north side. They kind of share a border. It's a really great nature preserve, but somebody did a no-no. A pet owner just left a cage. We don't know what kinds of birds were in there. At least I don't. Maybe it's been since confirmed. But this morning we are going to check in with Bob Dolgan, who is a bird expert, to talk to us about this situation. Bob, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Very, very, very good. Thank you so much for joining Caitlin and me on Chicago Now this morning. Let me start off by asking you just to react to this circumstance here, and whether it's dangerous or what this person did right, did wrong in a situation where obviously it raised a lot of eyebrows that this empty and open birdcage landed at the West Ridge Nature Preserve.
Sure, this is a pretty alarming situation. As a pet bird owner myself, I would never, have my pet, disappear by releasing it into the wild. I would recommend having maybe a friend or a family take care of the bird rather than do this, because it's going to be terribly dangerous and likely deadly for the bird. You have to remember that most of the birds being kept as pets in a place like Chicago are tropical birds, so they're not going to be in their natural habitat, and that's going to cause all sorts of issues in terms of potential predation, potentially, climate. Certainly, they're not going to survive the winter here, and just a whole number of challenges.
So, Bob, I brought up the point that maybe a bird got loose and they were trying to collect it again. In your experience, have you seen a good way to go about getting your bird back if it does escape out of your home?
I have not. I mean, I think I'd be very worried if I was in that situation. I think the likelihood of it returning, birds are not like dogs returning to a yard or doghouse or something like that. Birds are different creatures, and I don't expect that they would likely be able to find their way back to a cage, at least as far as the typical birds that are being kept, like species like budgerigars or parakeets or zebra finches. That's going to be very, very difficult. It's an unfortunate situation. I'm sad that took place, but it's going to be very hard to get a bird back once it's in the wild.
In terms of releasing non-native birds into the wild, I know last time you were on the show, we were talking about how this is a migratory period, so we have a lot of passersby, some transitory birds. Is there even a native population per se here in Chicago, and what are the implications if a non-native species is released?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a great question, because certainly the release of non-native birds like house sparrows and European starlings going back 100+ years has completely changed the ecosystem here in the United States. And so I don't think we're at threat of anything like that now at that kind of scale. But you do have, a few exceptions to that in more recent years. Since about the mid 20th century in Chicago, you have the monk parakeets that have established themselves mostly on the south side of the city. But I don't think that we're really it's something to keep tabs on, but I don't think it would be because of some of the same factors. The birds that are tending to be kept as pets are exotic birds. They're not meant to be in this habitat or ecosystem. And it's really just, I more fear for the individual birds themselves because they're going to be just at great risk of predation by, cats that might be left outdoors, raptors, other birds that might be seeking a meal, and oftentimes, caged birds, either their wings may be clipped, or they just might be used to that environment, not able to give it a go and avoid a predator here. So, but it's a great question because non-native birds have certainly altered the ecosystem in many ways. And at the same time, people love their starlings and sparrows. So I don't want to, make anybody
Yeah.
upset by that comment either.
Well, no, I got a little sparrow nest actually in my backyard. I think the babies were born recently. Quick
Oh.
question about predation, and this being spring, we're talking about baby animals. So if birds fall out
Yeah.
of their nest, when do we interfere and pick them up and put them back in their nest? Is it true that the mom can sense the human that picked up the baby? And when are they big enough that they've gotten out of their nest on purpose and they're ready to fledge? They just
Yeah.
might just be on the ground, hopping around.
Yeah, this is the time of year when we're encountering birds doing these sorts of things in our yards, and there's kind of a difference between the nestlings, which are birds that are really meant to be in the nest and are that young that they really can't survive outside of the nest, and fledglings, which are a little bit more farther along, maybe a few weeks out from hatching. And so you sort of need to make a decision. If you see a bird on the ground, is it a fledgling or is it a nestling? Fledgling might only be able to hop or skip a little bit and not really fly yet, but they are probably okay. They're not going to be going back to that nest, and their parent is probably nearby and looking to feed them. The nestlings is another question, and it's sort of a myth that you want to be careful handling any bird, but it's sort of a myth that if you touch the bird, it will, automatically make the parent not come back or something like that. But actually, if the bird is helpless, it is suggested that you may pick up the bird and use some discretion and put it back into a nest if you know where that is. But generally, we want to be careful because you are supposed to be a licensed expert to really be handling wild birds to any extent. So it's important to be cautious, I would say, and thoughtful about how you engage. But oftentimes, leaving birds alone is going to be the answer.
So, sorry, can I bounce off
Yeah,
that
go
question
for
really
it.
quick? You said it in an expert. Do you have any recommended, especially with bird experts, for wildlife rehabilitation here in Chicago? If someone finds a baby and they don't want to do the wrong thing, but they can't find the nest that they should plop it in, and it's
Yeah.
not quite big enough, who should they call?
Yeah, I mean, the big one that comes to mind first is the Willowbrook Wildlife Center. It's part of the Forest Preserves of DuPage County. Another outlet to look up is the Chicago Bird Collision Monitors. They have a hotline that oftentimes they'll have some speedy advice for folks. If not, maybe have somebody who could come out. So there are a couple different resources. I suggest looking it up, and most communities may have a location nearby that could at least provide some advice. And so I know it can be distressing when we find birds that are struggling, and it at the same time, oftentimes nature runs its course, and birds end up being fine despite our concerns.
All right, Bob, this is great information. Certainly it's relevant to this time of year as we've been learning in a very familiar way. So we appreciate your time, sir. Bob Dolgan from the
Good to be
Newberry
back.
Library. We really appreciate it as always.
Look forward to speaking to you again. Thank you.
Yeah, we hope to speak to you again. Maybe during the fall, the
I would
winter
love
migration.
that. Maybe tomorrow.
We'll check back in with him. Okay.